What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer, and with BlizzCon 2018 only a short while away, it's time to dive into what we can expect to be revealed in regards to new story and game content for Overwatch. There's a lot of things which we know for certain, which I'll be covering in this video, but there's also a lot of more speculative content which we could be seeing announced and released in the near future that I want to discuss as well. So I'll be covering everything we can look forward to right here, and if you end up enjoying this video, then be sure to like, sub, and hit the bell to never miss any of my future Overwatch content. So to start, let's look at the three things we know we're going to get for certain at this year's BlizzCon event, which are a new animated short, new map, and new hero. First, let's touch on the animated short. Since the release of Overwatch back in May of 2016, we've gotten two new animated shorts every year, one being released at Gamescom in August, and the other being released at BlizzCon in November. Given that we once again got the Gamescom animated short this year, this essentially guarantees that we'll be getting the BlizzCon one as well. Now, as for who will be featured in the short and what events it'll cover, we really have no way of knowing just yet. There are some of the usual story-deprived suspects, such as the Lucio, Zenyatta, and Symmetra, who could all really stand to get a bit of exposition, and now that Overwatch comics are a thing of the past, an animated short seems like one of the best ways to flesh them out. But for now, the short could end up featuring just about anyone, so we'll have to wait and see. Next up, we have the new map. Every past BlizzCon has showcased a new map, being Oasis in 2016 and Blizzard World in 2017. So we're more than likely going to be seeing another new map this year. One important thing to note, however, is that despite the new map being revealed at BlizzCon in November, it won't actually go to live servers until January. This is what Blizzard did with both previous BlizzCon announced maps, and is necessary to fit with the Overwatch content release cycle of a new map being released every 4 months. It could hit the PTR as soon as Hero 29 does, which will likely be right after they're announced, but don't expect it to join the live map roster for quite a while. Additionally, when it comes to the new map's game mode, it'll more than likely be Assault. Looking at the past map releases, we have 5 different maps for Escort, Hybrid, and Control each, but only 4 maps for Assault. So unless Blizzard plans for map distribution to start being less even across the 4 modes, the next map's mode is pretty set in stone. Personally, I'd love to see a brand new map mode beyond these 4, but sadly that might be a little too far into the realm of wild speculation. Also, when it comes to where exactly this new map will be located, there are some leads we have based off of the story and characters we have so far. In fact, I made a video going over the top 5 possible new map locations a few months ago, and I ended up being right about Busan, so perhaps one of my other ideas in that video will end up happening at BlizzCon this year. I'll include a link to that video in the cards on screen if you want to check it out. But moving on now to the final and juiciest of certainties for BlizzCon 2018, we have Hero 29. Now, there's a lot to say about Hero 29, and that's why I've actually decided to split up talking about them into separate videos. There's way too much evidence and speculation to cover just here, so I'll reference you to my other videos covering the new hero in more detail. So far, I've already published one explaining what role and abilities the new hero is likely to have, which you can find linked in a card on screen. In short, the new hero may be the crowd control solution that we've so desperately been needing lately. Also, I have another video planned to release later this week where I discuss who exactly the hero could be. There's a lot of candidates in the Overwatch universe currently, so I'm really excited to upload that video as soon as I can. If it's already up, then you can find a card to it on screen, but if not, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss its release. Having covered the 3 main things we can expect from BlizzCon, now let's talk about the less clear-cut possibilities. The first of these being another base loot pool update. Last year's BlizzCon announced that there would be a substantial update to the base loot pool, which ended up releasing the following January alongside the Blizzard World map. It featured a number of new skins, emotes, highlight intros, and other cosmetics for every hero, all of which were independent of any limited time event. Getting another content update like this would certainly be nice, as cosmetics are always a good thing, but I'm not entirely convinced that it'll happen. I think if Blizzard does start to introduce more non-event cosmetic items, they're either going to be something like the All-Star Weekend skins, or more preferably something like the Nano Cola Challenge. Something like this encourages players to not only log in to get the new skins, but also to play the game in order to unlock them. Mini events like the Nano Cola Challenge are something I think we're going to start seeing more often, and I'm definitely excited for them. But as for getting some kind of base loot pool update early next year or at BlizzCon, I would say it has a 50% chance of happening at best. so I'm not personally keeping my fingers crossed for it. Next, we have the announcement of the third new social feature. Yes, we already know it's going to be a thing, and Jeff Kaplan even talked about it in the most recent developer update video, saying that it won't be added until at least the start of 2019. But given that we don't know what exactly the new feature is, BlizzCon could be the perfect opportunity to announce some of the specifics. Whether or not they do this will entirely depend on how close they are to actually finishing it, so unless they know that it's going to be ready to release in like January, we're probably not going to be hearing any more about it at BlizzCon. But it's definitely a possibility, and more than anything just depends on how far along they are with developing it. I've still got my money on it being some kind of clan system, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, getting into some of the possibly more exciting announcements we could be getting, we have things like story and game expansions. First, let's talk about story. Players always want to learn more about the world and characters, but Blizzard has given us minimal development. We all want to know what happens after Winston recalls Overwatch, or Doomfist rejoins Talon leadership, or what exactly the Eye from Sombra's origin story means. All these are loose threads that we want answers to, and maybe we'll get at least something this year at BlizzCon. However, what exactly would this story look like if we do end up getting it? What medium would Blizzard use to convey these stories to us? Personally, I think one of the most likely formats we'd see is new comics. Not the simple free ones we've gotten in the past that are only a dozen or so pages long, but full-length stories told over multiple issues to form a proper long-running narrative. Something like the Overwatch First Strike comic, which was ultimately cancelled back in 2016. Assuming that Blizzard still wants to tell an ongoing story about Overwatch, this would be one of their best options for doing so. Over the past year, the only comic we've gotten was for the Retribution event, so is it possible that this was due to Blizzard stockpiling story ideas for the announcement and release of the first issue or volume of a new comic series? Maybe, and if it is, then BlizzCon would be the perfect place to announce it. Another idea when it comes to story is either an Overwatch movie or TV series. Both of these seem possible, but not particularly likely in my opinion, at least not in the immediate future. Developing a series like this, especially an animated one like what we'd expect from a franchise like Overwatch, is incredibly expensive and time-consuming. Even if Blizzard has decided to go through with it and has partnered with a studio to make the show or movie, they would have had to do it well over a year ago for it to be releasing anytime soon. Maybe we'll see something like that within the next few years, but for now, I think it's much more reasonable to expect some kind of comic or graphic novel to tell the story, which, to be fair, is something I would still love to see happen. Beyond the new story development, the other major expansion would be one to the game itself, some kind of expansion that introduces radical new mechanics or ways to play. Given how Overwatch events have taken something of a back seat recently, it's reasonable to suspect that Blizzard's Overwatch development team is focusing their efforts on something else, but we just don't know what. There's the new social feature I already mentioned, and we did just get an incredibly substantial rework to Torbjorn, but maybe there's something else even bigger. As for what this gameplay expansion would actually be, again, that's kind of up in the air. A lot of people think we'll be seeing a new permanent PvE mode, but I don't think that's very likely. Overwatch was never designed to be a PvE game, and frankly, I think focusing development time on some kind of PvE mission mode beyond just the seasonal Junkenstein's Revenge and Archive modes would more than likely be a waste of resources. Maybe if they released a completely separate game in the Overwatch universe, which was designed from the ground up with story and PvE in mind, then it would work, but taking the game we have now and trying to inject large amounts of PvE into it just wouldn't be a good idea. So what else could this possibly be? As I said earlier, I think something along the lines of a new map mode beyond the 4 we've seen since launch could be really refreshing. Looking at similar games like TF2, there are plenty of mode ideas which could possibly be translated into Overwatch. Maybe some kind of payload race mode, or maybe an assault map with more than 2 points, or perhaps a control map with multiple active points which could be captured. Maybe not all of these would end up working, but they're a good starting point for considering what kinds of changes we could see in quick and competitive play. Another idea that I personally would love to see is some kind of daily challenges or bonuses. Not only would this offer an incentive for players to come back every day, but also it gives regular players like myself more things to do on any given day. Playing to get the new achievements for this year's Halloween event has actually been kind of fun, despite how straightforward and easy they are. I think having some kind of regular tasks like this could be a fun way to make playing the game feel more satisfying. I realize that the challenges themselves would have to be pretty basic, as giving everyone the challenge to play 10 rounds versus Roadhog in a single day would result in quite a mess. But I'm sure Blizzard could come up with something creative that would still satisfy the urge to grind, which so many games have used to keep players invested. Overall though, regardless of what we actually end up getting, the one thing I implore from each and every one of you is to limit your expectations. Despite all the possibilities, if you're going to expect the world to be announced at BlizzCon this year, you're only setting yourself up for disappointment. Personally, I'm only expecting the 3 certainties which I laid out at the beginning, and anything else we get I'd consider to be a bonus. But let me know your thoughts and hopes for BlizzCon 2018 in the comments down below. Are you looking forward to some kind of big Overwatch expansion, or are you like me and keeping your expectations low for the time being? Either way, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video and share it with a friend if you really liked it. Subscribe and hit the bell to keep up with all my future Overwatch content, and follow me on Twitter for even more news and updates. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, be reasonable in your expectations, and have a great day.